What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Chad the Side. He is back with us to obviously what's the fantasy season. I feel like, it's like in Lord of the Rings where they light the beacons because Gondor is calling. It's like, the lights of a beacon, the fantasy season has started. Tad is finally here to give us aid. So I think that's the same thing that's happening here. So how have you been, buddy?
Okay, 3 things. 1, you're a nerd.
Fine.
2, the back pun was right there and you didn't go for it.
Well, you know what? I feel bad that you've been out this long.
Well, that's
it's not anything I want to rub salt in the wound on.
And 3, how did you know I have AIDS?
That's what's keeping you out so long.
Well, that and the crabs, but that's surprisingly a separate issue. Can we move on, please?
Yeah, you're the one who's surprised. It's all on you. I didn't suggest any of this. This is all you're doing. So you dug the hole. You try to get yourself out of it. That's exactly what it is.
I made that joke while applying for jobs. That was a dangerous prospect.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we are here. We are 1 week done in the NFL season. It's little, Tad, this episode specifically, we're going to go into our starts and sits for week 2. But this week, once we get later in the season, you have an idea as far as how these teams are performing, how players are performing, injuries, suspensions, like all of that is hopefully done and gone or creeping up. So week 2 is actually a very difficult week to decide as far as starts and sits because how much can we judge from week 1? Is like, Baltimore's week 1 collapse against Buffalo. It's like, how much can we trust that defense? They're playing Cleveland this week. So it's like, should we still trust them? You look at your Colts. They absolutely ran all over the Miami Dolphins. So it's like, which side are we trusting? Is Indianapolis really that good or is Miami really that bad? I really have no idea. The Niners, once again, are suffering with all these injuries. So how much can we trust them against a really bad New Orleans Saints team that somehow almost came back against Arizona last week? So, I mean, it's really tough to decide your starts and sits, but that is where me and Tad are here to provide you with that, sort of peek through everything, clear out all the mess, get you through the fog there, and get you the right picks here in week 2.
Well, and a perfect example of this happened, in the one game already played in week 2 with both the injuries and is this a legit, performance with, it happened with me and not unfortunately the league we were playing in together. But in my other league where Tucker Kraft, I really like how involved he was in the offense in week 1. And I took a gamble. It was like, I think that's going to keep going. I did not think it was going to keep going that much, but it happened. And in terms of injuries, we've had our first season-ending injury with Austin Ekeler, and it's hilarious because in my third league, I had the rookie. What's his name? The hyphenated guy, Merritt.
I just called Bill.
His name, Bill. Get out of here.
He wants to go by Bill. He has said it.
Okay, fine. So Bill only got me 2 points in my other league, and I was like, oh, I'm dropping your ass. And then Austin Ekeler went down. I'm like, okay, I'm keeping your ass.
Yeah, you better. But yeah, so exactly like Tad said, we did have our season-ending injury for Austin Ekeler, fortunately. So that really either murkies up that backfield in Washington or completely clears it up. Like, I mean, you could go in either direction because, yeah, we'll see what sort of transactions they sort of make to sort of supplement that backfield because, yeah, now it's only Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. That is his name apparently there, but he likes to go by Bill. That is, he's actually said it in his press conferences there. Then they still have Chris Rodriguez Jr. on the roster as well. So we'll see if they sort of add to that backfield there.
I mean, that makes as much sense as a guy named Spencer when he go by Tad. I mean, it's just like, what the fuck is that guy thinking?
Yeah. Unfortunate initial state.
Shut up.
But Tad, let's sort of get into our week 2 starts and sit picks. As mentioned, like I said, this is a little bit tougher week, but hopefully, with the analysis that we're providing for you, you should be in a good spot to set your roster for tomorrow as well as for the Monday night doubleheader A doubleheader on Monday night, so that should be fun there. So let's start at the quarterback position here. Tad, do you have a start or sit for me there?
So you kind of poo-pooed them, but I actually liked what I saw of them, and I'm going with a start with the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. I think that this is going to be a very good year for Kyler Murray. In fact, I think that was actually, I think it was the last episode I did, which was our quarterback preview episode where I was a little higher on Kyler than you were, if memory serves. And in fact, I was so high on Kyler Murray that I got a little nervous with my QB situation week 1. It was Dak, which thank God I did not start him, or Caleb, which would have been a good start, but risky, beforehand. So I actually traded Christian McCaffrey to get Kyler Murray, which everyone in my league was like, "Are you smoking crack?" And I'm like, "Well, no, because I like this." And what ends up happening is he actually has a pretty solid performance against the Saints where he threw for 2 touchdowns. Technically, one of them was a shovel pass or was really more of a David Johnson touchdown, but hey, it counts. I don't care. And here's some interesting things going into their week 2 matchup. So first off, Kyler Murray only threw for multiple touchdowns 4 times last year. Not a whole lot. So the fact that they're starting off the year like that with him throwing multiple touchdowns, to me, is showing more faith in their passing offense. And they definitely, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is stepping into that offense a lot quicker than he was last year. I know he made some really impressive plays last year early in the season, but it really seemed like, few and far between. Also, I know a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, he only had 163 yards passing against the Saints, which is a fair criticism, but they didn't really need to pass it against the Saints all that much. Like, I know they technically had that like little bit of a comeback, but no one was really scared. So it was more of, depend on the rushing game. So I think that will actually come into play more against the pass, come into play more against the Panthers, who are a better team than the Saints right now. And this is a rare case where we actually get to look at how he did against this team literally last year. They played the Panthers in week 16 of last year, which helped me figure this out. Scheduling rule-wise, how is that possible?
Don't ask me about how they schedule things.
It's so confusing. I was like, I thought that would, like, unless they're in your division, you don't play a team twice in a row. Unless it's the playoffs, obviously. But anyway. But against the Panthers last year, Murray had 60 yards rushing and 2 total touchdowns. A pretty similar game to what he had this past week, where he had about 20 points given your league's scoring opportunities. And you look at Carolina's defense, other than, adding on Hall of Fame safety Trevon Merrick, they really haven't, what? There's nothing I said that was false there. Go Frogs. And nothing that I said that was biased. Go Frogs. Fuck Bill Belichick. But the Panthers defense is largely the same. And I know what people are going to say is like, oh, look at what they did to Trevor Lawrence. Okay, first of all, it's Trevor Lawrence. So I'm not that amazed by anything the Panthers did last week, except for that J.C. Horn interception, because that was fucking ridiculous. But other than that, I think that this Panthers defense is still pretty susceptible, and Kyler Murray is definitely worth another start coming into week 2.
Yeah, I think
Trevon Merrick is a Hall of Famer. Book it.
Okay. In other recent TCU news, the Chargers have just released Jalen Reagor.
So, no, did they? Damn it.
They did. I think it was last week, but yeah, they did release it.
They still got 2 of them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have 40 of them, seriously, on that roster. The Chargers have so many TCU players. I really don't understand what's going on there.
The Los Angeles Herd Frogs.
But yeah, I think you look at this matchup with Carolina. I think that's the biggest thing that sort of makes me have a little bit more confidence in Murray to have a sort of repeat performance like he did against the Saints last week. We knew heading into the season that the Saints were not a good team, so it's like you start Murray with confidence there. Now you get a second week against a sort of weaker NFC South defense again. You sort of take that repeat, sort of start their performance again, and then you sort of temper your expectations for later in the season. But yeah, for week 2, that's just a great matchup to take advantage of. So yeah, Kyler Murray is a good start for sure. You brought up Trevor Lawrence. He's actually my sit this week. I feel like we're sort of creeping into that territory where a lot of people were saying, me included, that outside of the Urban Meyer season, Trevor Lawrence, there's a lot to like there. But I think we're sort of creeping into a part now where it's just like, I don't know if that's true anymore. Even if you throw out the Urban Meyer season, I just don't like Trevor Lawrence. I just don't see the progression year over year to make me think finally he'll turn around. Yes, he's a franchise quarterback. Yes, he's deserving of that massive contract that he got in the offseason, right? So you look at last week against Carolina, who the Arizona Cardinals are playing this week, Lawrence could only muster 178 passing yards with no touchdowns. So, I mean, that doesn't speak to me as a former number 1 overall pick that you can't do that against a pretty bad Carolina defense. That is speaking volumes to me as far as my confidence in his level of play. The Panthers last season allowed the most total yards in the league and also the most passing touchdowns. So the fact that you couldn't get anything against that defense really speaks volumes to me, like I said. While the Jaguars did win against the Carolina Panthers, it wasn't through the efforts of Lawrence and the passing game. If it weren't for kicker Cam Little, Panthers might have hung around in that game and possibly could have came away with a win. So heading into week 2, Jacksonville is now going to take on the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a hard time putting away the Cleveland Browns last week. But surprisingly, when you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, you don't think about their defense being all that great. But if it was the defense actually that secured the victory for the Cleveland Browns in that game, you saw that deflection interception sort of seal the game in the final drive there against Joe Flacco. So, I mean, it's just like the offense was very slow to start. They only put up 17 points. So it's like I like them to bounce back this week. But I think that defense with former college coach Al Golden now taking over the reins for them, I think it's going to lead to a better effort by that defense going forward, especially this early parts of the season. Maybe as the season goes along, the offense will pick up steam and the defense will start to sort of, even itself out. It won't be as high powered as it is right now to start the season. But in this matchup, you'll look at this defense with Cincinnati. I just don't like what Trevor Lawrence can do against Carolina. A weaker defense now going against a stronger defense coordinator in Al Golden and that Bengals defense that has Trey Hendrickson, has some solid players on that defense that just I don't like Trevor Lawrence to really do much, if anything at all. So the performance that we saw in week 1, I expect something similar here in week 2 with Trevor Lawrence.
Especially with, I'm not saying this is a massive loss for the offense, but that Tank Bigsby trade was very interesting for the reason that it was indicative to me of like the Jags are still figuring out exactly how to make this offense work. And they're still, clearly moving around pieces. If that was a trade that went down in the preseason, it would have made a lot more sense. The fact that it was a post week 1 trade, which to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen, really tells me there's a lot to still figure out on this Jaguars offense.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, Tad, it's like, I don't know if you remember this, but it's like pretty much all offseason, the rumor was that the Jaguars were going to trade Travis Etienne, not Tank Bigsby. They were like going to give the raise to Tank Bigsby and the rookies that they drafted and trade Travis Etienne. But now it's sort of been the opposite where it's like, nope, we're trading Tank Bigsby. We're hanging on to Travis Etienne. So it's exactly like you said. It's like, I don't know what sort of all of a sudden switched where they're like, nope, this is the direction that we're going to go in instead of this direction. It's like, are they still trying to figure it out as the season has now begun? That is, like I said, a little bit concerning for sure if you're a Jaguars fantasy manager of any of those players. Like, how's this offense going to look week to week and over the entire season? So, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, though, it's like that's a guy that, like I said, I feel like if he doesn't prove it this season, it's like he's never going to do it. I think that's pretty much what I've sort of got into there for.
Well, and I mean, I'm just saying this from a completely non-biased standpoint. I have no skin in the game, but I'm just saying, like, if he doesn't work out, it's a real shame.
Yeah, good luck against Denver this week, buddy.
Thank you. We're gonna need it.
So let's get to the running back position here, Tad. Do you have a start or a sit for me at this position?
Oh, I got to sit. You want to talk about week 1 overreactions? Let's do week 1 overreactions, baby. And this is very exciting because I'm about to debut a new acronym for the season, and you know how much I love acronyms. So I am saying Kenneth Walker is an absolute sit for this week. There is a ton to be worried about after that week 1 performance. For one, he only averaged 2 yards a carry on 10 carries.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. Also to be worried about, this is more worrying, those 10 carries did not lead the team. Zach Charbonnet led the team with 12 carries, and he was much more efficient with those 12 carries because he has score and averaged 4 yards a carry. So I think Charbonnet's going to keep getting it. It's very possible that the Seahawks ditch the run early and keep throwing the ball because who are they playing this week? The Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know that the Steelers just got gashed against the Jets, but I think the Jets' offensive line is better than the Seahawks. Why do we keep going after their offensive line? It's
mainly you.
I'm sorry. Their offensive line is terrible. You can yell at me all you want in the YouTube comments, but your offensive line sucks. And the Jets have a better running back. I like Piarsall than either Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, which that might be a bit of a hot take. So I think that there's just so much not to like with Kenneth Walker here in terms of, again, with all these early question marks of we're not exactly sure how this backfield is going to, shape up. I'm not convinced this offense is not going to panic and, again, throw the ball 40 times when they're all of a sudden down by 20 in the second quarter. So, and this is the new acronym, Kenneth Walker, he's buffing.
Okay, what does that stand for?
He's buffing. He's benched until further notice. Buffing.
Oh, got it. Okay, I like that.
Oh, wow. Okay, I thought you were going to hate that.
Once I understood the acronym, I was like, okay, I can see that. I
went in to do something with barf, but then I figured Marvel might try to sue us, and I just neither one of us have the cash for that right now.
Definitely not.
Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, just speaking about Kenneth Walker III, it's actually kind of funny. We're talking about Washington's backfield, and there's lots of speculations that Kenneth Walker III might be on the trade block potentially with this injury to Austin Ekeler. Also, you talk about the Jets. There's a lot of talk before the season began that with Aaron Glenn and his running back by committee approach, he was very committed to the backup running backs there with Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. That's like, is Brees all possibly on the move too? So possibly those are two teams to look at there as far as maybe moving a running back to Washington if the price is right to possibly shore up that backfield of Washington. And then one of those possible running backs that moves on to Washington, I think they may see a fancy uptick there if they were to make that trade.
If Kenneth Walker goes to Washington, I'm doing everything in my power to trade for him.
Yeah, I agree with that there. But yeah, I think you look at Pittsburgh here. I think you look at just the game that Kenneth Walker III had against San Francisco's defense is very, they changed a lot of their pieces. So it's like, it's not the strong defense that we're used to seeing. It's still very much a work in progress.
Like it, though.
And exactly. So it's like to see that performance from Kenneth Walker III, that is a little bit alarming for sure. So yeah, I would agree that this is it for sure. I'm going to give you a start though. Very parallel comparisons here too, because he had a running back mate that he was competing with. He got less touches in the game, but he was more efficient with it. I'm going to say start Trevion Henderson this week against the Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
So Miami we already talked about this, had one of the roughest outings on week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. They were one of 4 teams to allow over 400 total yards that week. And the Dolphins were also one of only 3 teams to score less than double-digit points in week 1 as well. New England now gets to take advantage of the Dolphins' lackluster defense and a chance for rookie Trevion Henderson to finally break out. So the Dolphins allowed the 6th most rushing yards in the league last week with 156. The Patriots did have to lean on the passing game a lot more as they trailed the Raiders a lot of that game in the second half in that week 1 matchup. New England has had a total of only 18 rushing attempts in that game compared to 46 passing attempts by Drake May.
They passed it 46 times last week.
He passed it 46 times last week. And
yet Stephon Diggs only had like 4 catches. How is that? But God damn it, New England.
Yeah. It was not good.
I didn't start him.
The AFC East game should be a lot closer to the box score because the more balanced attack that I think New England can employ here. So, as mentioned, Ramondre Stevenson led the Patriots with 7 rushing attempts. That almighty number of 7 rushing attempts. But Henderson only traded him by 2. So, he had 5 rushing attempts in the game against Las Vegas, though. But this is the big thing. Like you said with Zach Charbonnet, sort of having the better efficiency with the more rushing attempts, even though Kenneth Walker was supposedly the starting running back. Same thing here. Henderson was more efficient with the carries that he got because he totaled 27 rushing yards compared to only 15 for Stevenson. So 15 rushing yards off of 7 rushing attempts is not great, but to only have 5 rushing attempts and get 27 rushing yards, that's almost 5 yards a clip for Trevion Henderson. So I think the breakout's about to happen. You look at this situation, you got the matchup there. You look at Miami, there's a lot of question marks as far as whether Mike McDaniel is going to keep his job at the end of the season. They're just not sure whether that's going to sustain it worked for a while, but just
death, taxes. Will Mike McDaniel have a job at the end of the season? About 4 guarantees in life.
Yeah, and there's also like the reported news about Tyreek Hill being involved in another domestic abuse situation and possibly the rumor of trade circles again, sort of thing. So it's like, I'm not sure what's going on there, but just it is a mess in Miami, and I think it's because of the
I
apocalypse
don't
that
even think
Indianapolis
football's
brought
going on
last week. It's like now the sky is falling in Miami. Like, what the hell is happening there?
I love this so much. I was listening to my favorite sports podcast, which is based in Miami, and I am weeks behind. So it was like an August 28th episode, and this was yesterday. I was listening to this, and they were talking to Miami Dolphins columnist, and he was like, I think Dolphins will be 7-1 by their bye week. And everybody else on the show luckily was like, "You're insane," and they were just like,
well,
"What
one
has
happened? Let's see."
Well, and that was the best part is he was like, they asked him, they were like, "What has to happen for you to like not be a optimist homer for the Dolphins?" And he goes, "If we were to go into the Colts house and just get our asses kicked, but I don't think that's gonna happen." And I lost it laughing at stuff like this.
Yeah, that was quite a beating by the Colts on the Miami Dolphins. So yeah, like I said, I'm not sure which one to trust. It's like, should we trust the Colts or should we trust the Dolphins as far as what appearance they're for?
The correct answer is neither.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more appropriate answer for sure. But yeah, heading into week 2, like I said, I think just what we saw from Miami, I think it's a little bit of just, uncertainty there. I think for them to lose that badly to Indianapolis, that sort of speaks a little bit there. So like I said, I like Trevion Henderson. A lot of people were raving about this guy all offseason. I think he finally gets more touches this game, both in the running game as well as the passing game, and really emerges as that starting running back in that backfield there in New England. So yeah, very much a start for Trevion Henderson this week.
And not just the offseason hype, but the preseason hype too is where I really bought in, because it is like a core pillar rule for me of fantasy football is I stay away from rookie running backs. Ashton Genty was not even on my big board for no other reason than he was a rookie. It wasn't, It's not like I thought he would bust or anything. I don't know. And so that looks like a fair guess because he also didn't have that great of a week 1. But point being is Henderson was one of the few rookies like over the last few years where I was like, okay, no, that's actually good fantasy get. And it did shock me when I saw, okay, he didn't put up that good of numbers. But so, yeah, I think it was just an outlier. I think they got to balance out that offense. And I think Henderson will lead to do it. And it's also important to note he had 6 catches as well. So he is still actively involved in that offense. So I like it. Now he will be in Buffin territory if he, lays another egg this week, though.
I probably agree with you there. So yeah, we'll see how this matchup goes this week. So talked about Stephon Diggs, talked about Tyreek Hill. Let's get to the wide receiver position here now, Tad. Do you have a starter for me this week?
I gotta sit and Amir, calm down. Calm down. I don't know why everyone is acting like, this one team is going to make the Super Bowl because, they have a quarterback that's apparently on redemption tour. It looked amazing. Calm down. You're buying weight. Amir, you're being way too much of a homer right now. All right? Cool it. Yeah, you got to set Michael Pittman.
You think?
So, okay. I will tell a quick story. It was hilarious. So I actually missed the entire slate of early games last weekend. Because tell me this is like the most mother thing ever, and I have to be very careful with how I word this because she listens to this podcast. I went to brunch with my lovely mother last weekend, and it was great. It was some of the best pancakes I ever had. Unfortunately, we'll just be a short brunch turned into I got home at like 4:00.
Of course.
Yeah, naturally. So I got home and I was like, all right, let's see how bad we got our asses beat. I was like, oh, my phone's malfunctioning. And I kept refreshing my app because I was like, oh, no, it's flipped. Like the Dolphins logo is supposed to be right there. I think the Colts will be better than admittedly I thought. I don't think they're legit yet. I think Miami might actually be that bad. But, Indianapolis is a wait-and-see team. And I think the same goes for Michael Pittman. I was avoiding every Colts receiver like the plague in every fantasy draft I had last month. I am still standing on that take. I think that this very well could be an outlier performance from both Daniel Jones and Michael Pittman, who had 80 yards and a score. Now, with that said, let's go best case scenario for the Colts, and it wasn't an outlier. We do have the second coming of Sam Darnold and the Vikings in the mix, which would be great. I'm still benching Michael Pittman because who is he going against this week? Not the Denver Broncos. I could give a shit about the Broncos. He's going against Pat Surtain. And at this point, I'm pretty convinced that family has figured out like the Black Panther thing where like a father hands down the talent generation by generation, and that's why he's so good. You cannot convince me otherwise. There's a herb garden in their basement. Oh, I got to be careful about saying that nowadays.
A little careful, just a little bit.
Trump doesn't listen to this, does he? I have no idea. But point being is like, even if this wasn't a fluke performance, that's a very tough matchup, which is evident. And I'm not saying the talent level is comparable, but it's still something worth noting. This is crazy. Denver did not allow a single Titan, not a single Titans receiver, just any Titan in general, to go over 30 receiving yards last week.
Yeah.
I have never related more to a father than Cam Ward's dad in the stands. Just be like,
that was a pretty bad drop by Calvin Ridley.
So bad.
On, you gotta catch that.
I definitely hold on to Michael Pittman if you have him. If he's on the waiver wire in your leagues and you're in need of a receiver, definitely look his way. But I think that is a very, very risky start if your hand is forced in that situation.
Yeah, I think on the day, Cam Ward, I think, had 65 passing yards or something like that. Like, it was very bad.
It was bad. I watched that game in the fourth quarter because it was like kind of close. It was like the last game that was kind of close. And they were like, Bo Nix, like 160 yards. I was like, oh, he's having a rough
He didn't
day.
have a good game either.
Yeah, and then it was, exactly. It was actually Cameron. Speaking of Bill and all the other guys, he wants to go by Cameron Ward now.
Okay, sure.
But yes, Cam Ward, because fuck you. It's like Mitch Trubisky wouldn't be Mitchell Trubisky. You know what? Win a game for the Chicago Bears. Then I'll start calling you Mitchell. How about that? But it was like, oh, Cam Ward has like 40 yards. So it was like, it's the fourth quarter. This isn't the 1950s. Anyway, we might actually win the AFC South. Calm down, America.
It's not that ridiculous to think about because, Houston did not look all that great last week against the Rams. We already talked about your Colts having a very good appearance there. The Jaguars do not look all that great either. And Tennessee with Cam Ward and just a lot of just unprovenness as far as how that team is going to look going forward too. So hopefully they can sort of right the ship there. But against Denver, it was a bad performance for sure. But hopefully he can rebound there. But I think with all of that there, Indianapolis in that matchup against Denver, Patrick Surtain II being the reigning defensive player of the year. That is not a matchup that I want to take advantage of because, that will side for Denver for sure. So, Michael Pittman Jr., I think, is a good sit this week, along with a lot of Indianapolis receivers, probably because, if they could do that against Tennessee, I know it's a little bit of a weaker team, but just, to do that, just the performance that they had is very impressive. I expect that defense to be good all season long with Denver there. So, I do like that sit, though, for sure, with Michael Pittman Jr. there. Oh, I like this. A shirt change. What are you, Lady Gaga? What's going on here?
So for our audio audience, I'm currently drinking out of a Colts, what do you call this, tumbler or metal mug. And here's the problem is I did not put the lid, the actual drinking part of the lid over the logo. So I had to put it. So while I was going for the visual bit of calm down as I'm drinking out of the Colts thing, the water, I tipped it over too much. I literally spilled water all over myself.
Yeah, I definitely saw that too. And I was like, what's going on here?
I force gumped it.
But Tad, I think it's appropriate that you're wearing that shirt because my start this week is Ricky Pearsall of the San Francisco 49ers.
Even with the news that just broke today?
What's the news that broke today?
Oh, I'm about to break this to you, aren't I?
Okay, go for it.
Oh, this is great. Brock Purdy officially will not play in this week's game.
Oh, I learned that yesterday. That's old news. So you're giving me old news.
Come on, ESPN. But okay, so even with Shanahan's heralded quarterback, Mac Jones, still a start in your minds?
I think because of this reason. So, Tad, you can literally name a Niners starting skill position player, and they're currently hurt because they're not suiting up this weekend against the New Orleans Saints. George Kittle, already put on the IR list, dealing with a hamstring injury. Brock Purdy, who you just brought up, he has been ruled officially out, dealing with turf toe, considered week to week.
And a shoulder injury, too.
And a shoulder injury as well, but it's more of the turf toe. The shoulder thing they can sort of manage there. But regardless there, he is considered week to week, not put on IR yet. So don't worry about future weeks. We'll see about that week to week. Juwan Jennings dealing with the shoulder injury as well. He is leaning towards not playing this weekend. He has been practicing this week. So it is a little bit with that Q put right next to his name on fantasy rosters there.
What does questionable even mean?
And of course, Brandon Ayuk is still nursing an ACL injury from last season. He is not looking to play until at least week 5. He is not on the IR either. So it's there's a possibility he could come back there. So surprisingly, the two healthy players in the starting roster for the 49ers and skill position players is Ricky Pearsall and surprisingly Christian McCaffrey. They are the only
you put some respect on Tonja's name.
Jake Tonjes, yeah, exactly. So we'll see how his performance will look in week 2 here. But just, yeah, those are the two starting, like I said, starting heading into the season. Those are the starting skill position players there. So yeah, we'll see exactly how that plays out there. But we already talked about this earlier, where it's like Arizona was able to take advantage of a weak New Orleans Saints team. It's a very tantalizing matchup to sort of take advantage of. But if you look at the 49ers offense, it's very much the pickets are slim there. So it's like you look at this. With that said, the plays that directly speak into why Pearsall is a start is because Pearsall will be competing with the likes of Marquez Valdez-Scantling at the receiver position, Sky Moore, who they just traded for and is still understanding the offense, usually more used as a kick returner. Kendrick Bourne, he is familiar with the system, but he was signed earlier this week, so he is still getting acclimated to his team. And, of course, you brought up his name, Jake Tonjes, at the tight end position, scored the winning touchdown against the Seattle Seahawks last week. But let's see if he gets more involved in the offense. They do have tight end Luke Farrell on their roster as well, so we'll see how that split goes at the tight end position. So with Brock Purdy not playing this week, we already talked about that there, Mac Jones will be starting in the place of Brock Purdy.
The quarterback that Shanahan wanted all along.
That everybody was talking about. That's like with that trade up, they're like, they're getting back Jones. They're getting back Jones. And obviously they took Trey Lance. Rest, as they say, is history. Trey Lance now a member of the Los Angeles Chargers, backing up Justin Herbert. But I think you look at Ricky Pearsall. He is the only one who's healthy, and he actually had a good game against Seattle. You look at last week, he's able to rack up 7 targets, 4 catches, 108 receiving yards. He unfortunately did not score in that game. But you look at last week with Marvin Harrison Jr. against this Saints defense. He was able to total 18.1 fantasy points in PPR leagues, which is good for tied for wide receiver 13 last week. Harrison had 5 receptions, 71 yards. He also scored a touchdown. So I think there's a good chance that Pearsall will be involved just as heavily. I think Mac Jones is going to have to look for his playmakers in this offense. I think that's going to be a lot of Pearsall. Even if the New Orleans Saints gives him a lot of attention, I think this is your favorite metric when it comes to receivers and pass catchers. It's just the volume aspect where it's like, I think he's just going to get thrown the ball so much that's like by the addition factor, by the mass volume, he's going to get enough receptions. He's going to get enough yardage then, and I bet you he's going to score as well. So because of that, I like Ricky Pearsall as well. So also, I talked about it. Christian McCaffrey is the only other healthy skill position player. I'd like to think that they involve Kyle Juszczyk as well.
Knock on wood.
We'll see. Yeah, exactly. Knock on wood. Hopefully he stays healthy the entire season. I think they'll involve Kyle Juszczyk as well. I'm hearing a lot of reports that they want to work him in a little bit more. He had a big reception against Seattle last week too. But I still think even if McCaffrey is supposed to have a good reception week, because he had 9 receptions last week against Seattle because of all the issues at the wide receiver position for San Francisco. So it's like I could see a similar situation, especially with Mac Jones having to check down often, that McCaffrey will be involved in the passing game quite a bit. But I still think the other person that's going to benefit the most is Ricky Pearsall because of the subtraction there at the skill position group for San Francisco. So because of the matchup and because of the, addition by subtraction rule there, Pearsall's a must start for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing as your targets argument, but this goes in this, a phrase that we say every year where it's you got to throw it to somebody. I mean, even if everybody is injured on that receiving corps, somebody is going to get the ball.
It's very true.
Yeah, he actually looked surprised. I don't know if it stood. I think there might have been a flag on the play, but like he made, I won't call it a diving catch, but a very impressive like outreach catch on the sideline last week. And there was a flag. I was watching Red Zone. So of course they're like, flag, other game. And so I don't know if it ended up standing or not, but for a small dude, I was like, you are making catches like Julio Jones. And that's a weird thing.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that continues this week. I like it to continue this week against a bad Saints defense there.
But all right, Ted. All I'll say is if Pearsall goes down, that's a real shot to the chest for the 49ers.
You had to go there, didn't you?
He lived. I'm allowed to make that joke.
I know. It's fine. It's fine. All right, Ted, let's get to the tight end position here. Do you got to start or is it for me this week?
I'm so mad. So I have a start to start things off, but I'm so mad because I was trying so hard last night as I was wrapping up notes to make a Mr. Doctor, maybe it is strange joke somewhere in there, but it was midnight and I was tired and I did not have the creative juices left for it. So I'm just going to go into it. There's a great pun somewhere in there. So viewers, listeners, help me out. is a guy you started actually last week in the LAFB league, which is Brenton Strange, the tight end for the Jaguars. Because I saw you were starting him. I was like, what the hell are you doing? And lo and behold, he is the lone touchdown scorer through the air for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Actually, that's not true. Brian Thomas caught a late one, I think. But bottom line being is he was, he had 4 targets, 4 catches from Trevor Lawrence. He is clearly the crutch of this offense, meaning if they can't get going, they're going to lean on him. And you kind of went into this about, how surprising that Bengals defense looked against the Browns at certain times. You kind of went into how surprisingly good they looked. I'm going to go into how surprisingly bad they looked because, speaking of targets, Harold Fannin Jr., who is a guy you and I both love throughout the draft process.
Out of Bowling Green.
Woo! He and David Njoku combined for 15 targets for over 100 yards and a score. So, and then you go back to last year, this Bengals defense was no better against tight ends. So it's just going to be more of the same from this Bengals defense. I don't understand how you consistently struggle against tight ends. It cannot be that hard, but Bengals are going to bangle. So I actually like Brenton Strange as a, but it's the case with most tight ends now is he is a touchdown reliant start, but I think that is a pretty safe bet of him getting a touchdown against the Bengals defense that has consistently struggled against tight ends. And I think the Jaguars are going to have to pass a whole hell of a lot of times to keep up with Cincinnati.
That's the big one there. The big one there. The reason that I was so high on Brenton Strange, I actually have a lot of shares of Brenton Strange across all of my fantasy rosters.
Yeah, because I think you started him against me and DK too, if I'm not mistaken.
That seems accurate.
I think you did. Yep.
But the biggest reason is because it's very similar to what we were talking about with Ricky Pearsall, where it's like they have to throw it to somebody. So it's like clearly Brian Thomas Jr. is now on the radar of every defense that's going to go against him. Travis Hunter Jr., we're going to have to see as far as like how much the Jaguars are going to use him on offense versus defense. We clearly saw that they used him mainly on offense last week, but he was very slow to start. I think he had like 4 catches for I think like about 40 yards or something like that. Yeah. So it's like it's not a great statistical number there. So because of that, we saw Brenton Strange last season start to emerge because of the injuries to Evan Ingram. So I think he's going to benefit the most because who else are the Jaguars going to throw to in that passing game? And exactly like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of situations where the Jaguars are going to have to fall behind, or not have to, they will fall behind. And they will have to air it out. I think because of that, Brenton Strange is definitely going to benefit because of that. So I very much like the start. I bet you fantasy managers are wishing they could use the Eye of Agamotto to go back to draft Brenton Strange because he's going to have that good of a season this year. I guarantee you that much.
See, no, not a Dr. Strange reference. That's easy. That was just lazy. I'm saying a pun, like the whole Mr. Dot, like Mr. It's Doctor. Dr. Mister, it's Strange. Yeah, who am I to judge? Like, that is a great joke. But no, the MCU's too quippy. Get the hell out of
here. Tad, I'm going to go to sit here, and this is a guy that had a good performance last week, but I do not expect it to repeat this week. And this is a guy that everybody much is on the fence as far as whether he's going to finally break out or whether he's just going to be labeled a bust. And that is Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. I am labeling him as a sit this week. Drake London is dealing with a shoulder injury. He has been mentioned. He has been officially listed as he's going to play this week, along with Darnell Mooney. So I expect them to lead the passing offense for the Atlanta Falcons. Even before he was announced as playing this week, Raheem Morris said that he expected him to play this week. Atlanta was able to take advantage of a weaker Tampa Bay defense last week, but now they play a very tough Vikings defense that completely shut down Caleb Williams and Chicago Bears in the second half, just totally rebounded and really shut down things quite a bit there. So I think 2 reasons speak to the fact that Pitts should be shut down this week here in week 2. 1, Pitts came out strong last week. He scored 12.9 fantasy points and finishes the 9th best fantasy tight end in PPR leagues. The Vikings, though, held both Cole Kmet and rookie tight end Colson Loveland to a total of 3 receptions, 43 receiving yards, and 0 touchdowns combined. So I mean, this Viking, you're talking about, the Cincinnati Bengals being able to defend the tight end. The Vikings team, they have a lockdown because, 2 tight ends combined for that stat line there. So it's like he did come on strong, but I think the fact that, like I said, this is the second reason that with the return to Darnell Mooney, he didn't play in week 1. You got Drake London, who Michael Penix Jr. seems to be targeting quite a bit this offense. I have a feeling that this is going to be a situation where Both those guys are going to lead the passing attack. Kyle Pitts will be sprinkled in a little bit, but very much like you said, very touchdown dependent. If Kyle Pitts scores a touchdown, then he's going to have a good week. But I think in this situation against the Vikings, with the Vikings be able to prevent the tight end from doing much against them, they're going to lead much of this attack through Drake London as well as Darnell Mooney. Also, I look at the fact that Bijan Robinson had 100+ receiving yards last week, so I don't doubt that they'll involve him very similar to how the Niners will involve Christian McCaffrey this week. I can see that very much happening this week as well. So yeah, I just don't like how things are shaping up for Kyle Pitts to have a repeat performance. If anything, we're going to see a lot of what a lot of people saw last year, where it's just like, yeah, is it finally going to happen? Is it finally going to happen? We'll see 1 week and be like, yes, finally the trajectory upwards is happening. But no, this is a little bit of a mirage situation. You're in the desert. You're still looking for water. It is not Kyle Pitts. That is a full mirage.
Or what do I have right here?
I actually don't know. Is that like a ladle?
It's technically a paddle, but I was trying to make it look like a stick.
Okay.
Because I'm offering a stick to all you Kyle Pitts fantasy managers. Grab onto the stick. Let me pull you out of the quicksand. That is Kyle Pitts' career. Stop trusting that.
Continuing the desert trip. Trend
You're
there.
welcome. I got you. Thank God there was just a random stick here. But point being is, yeah, it's nothing against Pitts as a player, because I do think he's a talented player. I'm not going to trust him until he's with a different team. I'm just not. It's just he just screams needs a fresh start. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. That's not to say he's going to have a bad week every week from here on out, but he is going to, in all likelihood, be enormously inconsistent. So yeah, unless it's like an objectively good matchup, which this most certainly is not. He's a fine bench option, fine trade piece if you can find someone who still somehow believes in him. So I'm not saying drop him, but definitely don't start him this week.
Yeah, I think that's definitely keep him on the bench. As you like to say, buff it, bench until
Buffin, baby.
All right, Ted, really quick, why don't you give me your kicker and defenses starts or sits this week?
So I actually like, in our very last game of the week this week, the Chargers in the Monday night doubleheader, their defense against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chargers defense didn't do a whole lot against the Chiefs statistically. However, they did contain the Chiefs offense, which is promising enough. The Raiders, on the other hand, they had 1 turnover against the Patriots and allowed 4 sacks. I think that the Chargers are a pretty solid defense to start this week. And in terms of kickers, I got to sit for you. I am saying sit the Lions, Jake Bates. That man is buffing until the Lions can show me they can function without Ben Johnson.
Yeah, that's definitely, you got to wait and see as far as what Detroit's offense will look like without Ben Johnson. They do play Ben Johnson this week in the Chicago Bears. So yeah, we'll see exactly what sort of revenge factor we're going to see. Is it going to be for Ben Johnson or is it going to be for the Lions? We'll see how that all plays out there. For me, I got a sit at the kicker position, Tad. Unfortunately, it's your Colts kicker, Spencer Schrader. Denver's defense is sensational. I think they should prevent Indianapolis from moving the ball very much against them. I think this will limit any sort of field goal opportunities for Spencer Schrader or extra point opportunities. Schrader led all week 1 kickers with 15 fantasy points, but that should probably cut in half at least, if not be a little bit lower than that. Yeah, as much as impressive that win was by the Colts last week, I do not expect a repeat performance this week against the Denver Broncos. At the defensive position, I'm saying start the Los Angeles Rams, LAFB. I'm definitely saying start them because the Rams have a great matchup.
So you and I are both saying start the LA defenses. Okay.
Exactly. The Rams have a great matchup this week. They're playing the Tennessee Titans, who we just talked about. They're trying to figure things out. Cameron Ward just did not look great against Denver's defense. I think Rams defense is sort of, in that same sort of, maybe not the same tier, but it's like they have a very young and up-and-coming defense as well. Last week, the Titans were only able to generate 138 total yards and also 12 total points against the Denver Broncos against a tough defense. The Rams played the Texans last week, and they allowed Houston to score only 9 points and total 265 total yards. The Rams also had 8 total fantasy points as fantasy points are concerned, which is tied for the second most among all defenses last week as well. So yeah, they're, like I said, a very up-and-coming defense. They have a very favorable schedule to start the season. Play against the Titans, I think they should be the highest scoring defense this week. I very much like that matchup.
I like both of them. No arguments here.
All right. I like it. So guys, that will close our week 2 starts and sits. We'll hopefully get a start sit for you episode every single week. We're not sure about the waiver wires. We'll definitely be dropping graphics. So yeah, if you're following us on social media, make sure you're following.
Episodes are buffing.
Make sure you're following us on our social media handle because, yeah, we'll be getting you the weekly start sit episodes the best that we can. But for the waiver wires, we will be dropping graphics each and every week with all of our waiver wire decisions for all 6 positions there: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, as well as defense. So follow us on Twitter. You got me at OtherSide23. You got Ted at TedSide94. Got the show handle at the side, guys. And, of course, on Instagram at the Side Guys as well. That is how you stay up to date with everything that's happening with our podcast. In case we can't do an episode, that is the best way you can sort of keep in touch with us. That is how you interact with us as well. We want to help you. We say this each and every year. We want to help you win fantasy titles, except if you're in a league with both of us or one of us. We want to help you win fantasy leagues. We want to give you the best advice possible when it comes to waiver wire decisions, start-sit decisions, trade decisions, dynasty trade decisions, everything in between, personalized for your league. That's the best way you can get advice is if you hit us up through those channels there on social media. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can drop comments in there as well.
Unless you're a Seahawks fan that wants to bitch about their offensive line, I'm not going to hear any more of it. I'm done. It's been
we get a lot of comments on the YouTube channel as well. So yeah, please continue that. We appreciate everybody who's dropped a comment there.
Not the Seahawks fans.
That's a great way you can interact with us as well. And please, guys, make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network because without them, there would be no us. We already talked about how we like both LA defenses. They go deeper into why they like both of those matchups this week. So yeah, they're covering both the Rams and the Chargers at the NFL level. And Tad, probably a lot is happening on the Bruin Bible podcast because have you seen the record for UCLA right now? It's
Did
not
you see what happened
good.
Last night?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, I bet you Jamal Modney and William Decker they're not mixing words there. I'm pretty sure they're giving you the real honest truth as far as how UCLA is looking there. So they give you the full truth there with the UCLA Bruins. And of course, our good friend Al Rose giving you all the information when it comes to the USC Trojans and the Salute to Troy podcast there. So all 4 LA football teams is covered by LAFB Network. But Tad, we're in the final month of the MLB regular season, which means playoff action is coming up right pretty soon. So they got you covered with Dodgers and Angels coverage as well as we get to the final stretch of regular season as well as postseason coverage. And of course, with the baseball season ending, NBA season will be beginning right after that as well, right after the postseason of the MLB action is there. So they got you covered with Lakers and Clippers coverage. What's going on with all that Kawhi Leonard, fake tree organization stuff?
Good job, Pablo Torre. Good job, Pablo Torre.
LAFB Network's probably got you covered on everything that's happening there as far as what sort of repercussions are supposed to be coming to the Clippers or Kawhi Leonard or how that whole mess sort of got discovered and all that stuff. They got you covered there. So all LA sports is covered by LAFB Network. I'm pretty sure they got you covered with the Kings with some Kings information when it comes to hockey as well. So yeah, they got you covered on all fronts there at LAFB Network. But guys, to everybody who's supporting our podcast by listening to our podcast, by watching our YouTube videos, by interacting with us on social media, by dropping comments on YouTube, giving us a good rating. I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we really can't thank you enough.
And hey, by the time this episode goes live, Big Ten play will have officially started for your USC Trojans. Do you know who they opened the season against? I shouldn't say open the season, open conference play against. It is the Purdue, what?
Boilermakers.
Damn it. Who, by the way, fun fact.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, that is. Fun fact, though, is Purdue's defensive coordinator was the football player who broke my back in high school.
Oh, really?
So this is the rare time where I will say this and wholeheartedly mean it. Let's go Trojans. But if you want to hear the reaction from that game, and what I'm sure will be a lot of trash talk across town to UCLA because USC is off to quite a hot start this season. They haven't really played anyone, but still, check out the Salute to Troy podcast hosted by Al Rowe, the top podcast for everything USC, and that is the biggest compliment I can and will give him. Also, if you want a much superior podcast, I'm sorry, Al, I had to do it, and a much more fun one with a much superior host, it is LA Podfidential, hosted by good friend of the show, Chauncey Talese. A fascinating season for the Los Angeles Rams. Likely staffers last year, At least definitely with the Rams. I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. So, do they go for the one final, right off into the sunset Super Bowl push? Do they start looking at rebuilding? I don't know, but Chauncey Talise does. So if you are any Rams fan in any capacity, be sure to check that out wherever you find our podcasts, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you find your shows. Be sure to check out all those shows and others on the LAFB network because there's a lot of great content out there. And guys, it's good to be back. I missed you. I miss our listeners. I miss our viewers. We're back, baby. Fantasy football's back. Football's back. I love it. So, people, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your watching. And please stay safe, everyone.